Welcome to today's video, how to budget for irregular expenses. There are different expenses that can come up, whether it is something unexpected, like a car repair, or if it's something that we want to do, like take a trip somewhere. There's just a lot of different expenses, and if we can budget for those ahead of time, we are going to reduce our financial stress. So that is what we are going to talk about in today's video. Let's dive right in. All right, let's talk about how to budget for irregular expenses. And I'm going to cover the steps that I have taken to help me do this. The very first step for budgeting for irregular expenses is to know exactly where you are with your finances. You want to know how much is coming in and how much is going out and where it's going out to. You want to know your full financial picture. That way we can easily set up a way to budget for these irregular expenses. Because if we don't know where we are currently, it's going to make it a lot more difficult to factor in these irregular expenses and not feel so stressed when these expenses come up. The way I like to do this is to use a Google Sheet, and I use a free app. It's called Empower. It used to be called Personal Capital. But what I do is in my Google Sheet, I have all of my income sources listed out and all of my expense categories. And then I update it once a month so I can see where I'm spending money and making sure that I have enough money coming in. And then I also use Empower. So I hook all of my financial accounts to Empower. All of my credit cards, my checking, my savings, my retirement accounts, my mortgage, everything that you can think of that is financially related, I hook it to Empower. And that way I can see all of my expenses that are going out and I can see how much is actually in my savings. And then what I do is I take all of those transactions from Empower and I import them into my Google Sheet so I don't have to handwrite every single expense or every amount that's coming in. But it makes it nice because I can manipulate the data in the Google Sheet, and I just like seeing that quick financial picture. If Empower is something you're interested in, I will leave a referral link below. You can click on that link and set up a free account. But honestly, just set up your spending plan the way that it's going to work for you so that you actually know where you are currently with your finances. Another thing I like to include in my spending plan is whatever goal I am working toward. And this goal could actually be to build up an amount to have for one of these irregular expenses that is going to come up. And this moves us into step number 2, which is to create an emergency fund. So this could be for the irregular expenses if you're looking at something that is going to come up that will be an emergency, but it also could be something that you want to work toward. Like if you wanted to take a trip to Hawaii, then you can start planning ahead. But we want to set up an account that is just strictly for emergencies. And that way we have a buffer because we know that eventually an emergency is going to come up. And I would make sure that I have an emergency fund set up before I pay off any high interest debt, because if an emergency happens and we decide to put that on a credit card and not be able to pay it off, then we're going to continue to build up that high interest debt. So make sure that you have an emergency fund in place. And I personally like keeping mine in a high yield savings account. I like using Ally, ALLY. There are a number of accounts out there. Since we are keeping a large amount of money just sitting in a savings account, we want it to work for us as much as possible. So definitely look for a high yield savings account. And if you're wondering how much you should put in your emergency fund, a good rule of thumb is 3 to 6 months, but I kind of look at this a little bit differently. I like having as little cash on hand as possible because I want the majority of my money working for me. And I break this down in another video. I will leave a link above. You can check it out later on. But once we have our spending plan set up and then we have an emergency fund, let's move to the next step. Step number 3 is to set up your sinking funds. This is a great way to budget for irregular expenses because you can set up a fund for each of those different expenses. Essentially, a sinking fund is just putting money aside for an expense you know is going to come up. So going back to the vacation example, if you do want to take a trip to Hawaii and you want to save up for that, you can set up a certain fund, a certain sinking fund for your trip to Hawaii. The way I like to do this is to use Ally as well, because they have separate buckets within their savings account. So if you have a chunk of money sitting in your savings in Ally, you can actually divvy that money up into separate buckets. So you could have a Hawaii bucket, and you can have a car repair bucket, you can have a taxes bucket, and whatever other buckets you want. But all of your money is earning the same amount. It's earning that higher interest rate. So it's essentially just in one savings account. But when you log into your Ally account, you can see different buckets that you can set up or that you have set up. And then you can just allocate from that main savings account the amounts you want in each of those buckets. And one way to fund these sinking funds is to take a certain percentage from any income that you are receiving. So you could put 5% in your Hawaii fund, you could put 5% in your car repair fund, you could put 3% in your taxes, whatever amounts are going to work for you. But you can do it by percentage, so it makes it a little bit easier. And we want to make sure that once we fully fund the certain bucket, then we stop contributing to it. So we have our emergency fund. We want to know an exact amount that we want to keep in there, because we don't want to just keep contributing money to our emergency fund and having way too much money in there. And the same with our individual buckets or individual sinking funds. We want to have a specific amount that we put in each of those buckets. And once they are fully funded, of course, we can take that trip to Hawaii. But then we can have money to invest, because we don't want all of our money sitting in our savings account. And if you are thinking, Tiffany, you know what? I have all of my accounts set up, or I have enough money set aside, and I am ready to invest, and you want help with that, I have a free masterclass. I will leave a link below in the description, and you can click on that and check out how I can help you learn to invest your money in the stock market. Going back to setting up these sinking funds, you don't have to do it by percentage. You can focus on just one fund at a time and just fund it with a certain dollar amount. Just make sure you are planning ahead so that you aren't just spending all of your money and then wondering where it went. You want to set up these specific buckets, these specific goals that you have before you actually make the money or bring in the money. And that way you can put in a certain dollar amount every single month or every 2 weeks and actually fund for irregular expenses. Comment below and tell me one fund or one bucket that you are going to work toward. What is it that you want to save for? And then moving right along to step number 4 on how to budget for irregular expenses, we are going to prioritize our expenses. And when we are trying to prioritize our expenses, we want to realize what is going to be most important to us and work on that first. And I know that this can be kind of hard to do because we may want to take that trip to Hawaii. But honestly, we may have an older car and we know that something's going to break on that car pretty soon. So we may want to fund that car repair bucket first so that we aren't strapped for cash when something goes wrong with our car. So it's not just about the short-term gratification, what do we want right now, but really thinking in the longer term. What is it that we truly do want, but what is going to be essential to us? Are we going to need that car in order to get to work? And if that car isn't working, then we aren't going to be able to work. And if we aren't working, then we aren't bringing in more money and we're not going to be able to fund any of these funds. So when prioritizing, make sure and just take a step back and look at the full picture, look at that long-term perspective, and that's going to make it easier to prioritize what we want to fund first. And to give you a personal example, when I knew that I wanted to purchase another property, I wanted to save up for a down payment. So that became one of my goals, one of my buckets. And I knew that if I was spending a lot of money on clothing or extracurricular activities, then I wouldn't be able to purchase a property as soon as I wanted to. So just by having that one goal of saving up for a down payment on a house, I was so focused on that goal that I really didn't want to be spending my money in other areas. Because every time I thought about spending money on clothing or something else, I kept thinking, but I'm not going to be able to buy my house as soon as I want to, so I wouldn't make that purchase. It's important that we are thinking in the long term. What is it that we really want to achieve and why do we want to achieve that? I wanted to purchase another property so that I could create even more cash flow and purchase another property, and then eventually become financially free. While we may have that end goal of becoming financially free, we need to think in smaller steps and think backward. What is going to get us to that end goal? Is it to save up for a down payment on a house? Or is it to contribute more to our investment funds? And it's not about just sacrificing all of the time. We need to enjoy life along the way. So we can prioritize these other things that are important to us, like taking a trip to Hawaii if that's what's important to us, but not just swiping the credit card and not really being intentional about what we are spending our money on. And then step number 5 on how to budget for irregular expenses is to review your budget or your spending plan often. Things change constantly. We might get a raise at work, so we might have extra income coming in, and we want to have a plan for that. Or we might lose our job along the way, and so we need to plan accordingly. Or some of our expenses might be going up and we need to adjust where we are spending our money. And going along with this, it's important that we are flexible, that we can make adjustments. That is going to put a lot less financial stress on ourselves if we are able to do that. Comment below and tell me what you are going to be working toward. What are you going to save for? And if you found this video helpful, please hit that like button and share it with someone else who would like to hear this information. And hit the subscribe button to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and hit the little bell to get notified on when I post new videos. And if you want to see even more great content from me, make sure and check out the videos on the side of the screen. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.